Here you go.
Thank you.
Oh,
I think you were drawing something the last time we spoke, Todd. Hello, how are you both?
good.
Doing great.
Greg's drawing. I'm at CGC signing.
Oh, nice. I love the wall behind you. Okay, so let me get into character before I do my little introduction. Let me just pronounce the names, make sure I get them right. Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo.
It's us.
Perfect. I just never want to sound like a dunce for mispronouncing somebody's name.
We pretty much answer to anything.
Yeah.
After, right. So,
All right. Welcome to Gatecrash, the podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Today, I'm joined by two of the heaviest hitters in comics ever. It's really hard to give them a fitting introduction because if you've ever felt like you identified as a goth, an emo, or grew up reading comics anytime past the 90s, you know who these two are. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo. How are you both?
That's good, except it's Todd Capullo and Greg McFarlane. You were very close. You were
It's-
very.
All right, well, interview's over. I fucked up. Shit the bed. How are you?
we're good. Thanks for giving us the time today.
Thank you for giving me the time. So, Todd, you and I have spoken before, but Greg, I don't know if anyone's ever told you that I'm a pretty hard-hitting journalist, so I always start off with a pretty tough question.
Okay. I'll
What's
try
your
and give you
favorite?
a tough answer that'll be very difficult to understand.
What's your favorite sandwich?
My favorite sandwich. I really don't eat many sandwiches. I don't eat a lot of bread. So yeah, I don't have a favorite sandwich.
Damn! Wow. Yeah, I know you're the big fitness guy, so you don't eat. You do not eat sandwiches at all anymore.
No, 'cause I don't go too heavy into carbs as much. I mean, I eat carbs, but to me, a sandwich is if I was gonna make a tuna fish sandwich, I just open up the can of tuna and eat the tuna.
I like it.
So
It's a good approach.
I've got my sandwich right here.
What kind of that is awesome. Actually, you just pulled a whole sandwich out. What
Yeah.
kind is it?
They said that there's a great killer place that makes sub sandwiches. So I got a killer one waiting for me here.
I love that. So it's been some time since the original Spawn and Batman. How do you feel you've both evolved as artists and creators since your last outing with the characters together?
oh well, go ahead, Todd.
I mean, getting away from the technical side of it, I think we've just both gotten more popular. Like that matters when you're trying to sell books, right? And so, in the interim, Greg has gone on and made a career not only as the best Spawn artist ever, but in a bunch of people's eye, he's the greatest Batman artist they've seen too. So time has a way of helping you. You want everything when you're younger and you think you want it all, but then as you get older, you start to see that sometimes waiting for the fruit to ripen is sometimes advantageous.
You said that at the exact moment I'm drawing a tomato in a man's hand. Honest to God.
You guys are a dynamic duo.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, if it had happened in 2006, I mean, I look at some of the drawings I did for that when it was supposed to happen, and it's radically different from the way I ended up handling Batman. It's radically different. So, it'd always been confident to draw Spawn. I did 10 years or so of it, but now to have done 10 years on Batman and really, knowing exactly, what I want to do with that character, how I want to do it. It's just perfect timing for me, so I draw on the experience of 2 decades to put this thing together. So definitely a very comfortable thing to get involved with. It's like a lot of things I've done with DC, like the big sprawling metal and death metal. I didn't know a lot of the DC characters. So very difficult to give, good portrayals of characters you have no familiarity with. So this was really, really great and easy, even though they came from 2 different universes to put those together. So not so much evolution, just of years of acquiring, more experience.
Interesting. Now, both of you have drawn Batman before. Greg, you designed one of the best costumes of all time with the purple cape, and Todd, you
Oh,
had one of my favorite capes with the hook shoulders. Did you get to choose what look Batman was going to have in your book?
Yep.
Yeah, they did ask. I did ask. I
Oh.
said I initially would have put the Rebirth one that you just mentioned, because it is my favorite. But I'm sort of a team player, and so I didn't know if they did have a preference, and so I asked, and they sort of did have a preference. So I said that's fine with me. Ego aside, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It'll still be fun. It'll still be Batman. So yeah, I was intending the Rebirth, but then I go, hey, do you guys have a preference? And they said yeah, and it was the stuff that's just being put out today, so that it would be current. So I said yeah, that's cool. That works. So
interesting. Yeah, the purple. Your design is one that sticks in my mind forever. Now,
it was too short-lived.
Oh, trust me, we all like everyone knows our whole site has talked about it many times about how much we love that suit and how it needs to come back.
I tried to give a nod to all the previous. So a lot of people love the yellow oval, and DC is pretty adamant about that. And I'm coming back, so I go, oh, I'll give you a little yellow outline, and then there's the original Batman with the purple gloves. So it says, oh, the inside of the lining. So I mean, a lot of thought and love went into that thing, and those sons of bitches.
So with the cape talk, Spawn has the greatest cape of all time. There's no debating it. Does Batman have cape envy of Spawn?
Hey, it's not the size of the cape, it's how you fling it.
Yeah.
Spawn's got him beat at both. So
I was actually surprised again, because it's been a while since I worked with Greg, and obviously, I mean, I watched Batman, but I never really thought about the comparison that when he had a couple moments where he could have flared Batman's cape, I thought he was gonna go bigger, but then I quickly understood that it's not only has he defined a look for Batman, but that look also is separate from what he had done years prior on Spawn, right? Because if you get the two capes sort of too big each, then it becomes a little cumbersome in a weird way. So I actually, once I acknowledge, it's like, oh, so he's got a smaller cape, that even the actions of Batman, then I could be a little more flamboyant because the cape wasn't going to get all out of the way. With Spawn, at times, if I get flamboyant, I'm going, well, what's the cape doing at this time? So.
Yeah, and that's definitely an intentional thing. And I did it intentionally when I took on Batman, because I saw a lot of internet trolls complaining that I was going to give Batman a 40-foot long cape and turn him into Spawn. So I was really conscious about that. And but certainly, I think as a street combatant, not having a cape that's not alive would be a disadvantage. Like Spawn's cape is alive, so it could go completely out of his way. Whereas you could imagine, if Batman had an extremely long cape, it could really. I mean, listen, I step on one end of the cape, right? To get him off balance. So, plus, I just think it works better visually if they're not that alike. If they both had, the exact same height, the same width, and the same length, and all of that, it's not as visually appealing to me as if there's some notable differences. So, all conscious decisions,
Interesting. So with these two characters being so far removed for a long time, did you approach them differently as characters when they met again? Are there evolutions as characters thematically going to come up in this book?
For the Al Simmons character, there was. I mean, he's a little more wiser, a little more mature, a little more battle savvy. I play him being pretty serious, almost like a general in the comic books. I didn't quite go there in this book. He's got still a lot of raw emotions, and is way more emotional than the smart thinking, intellectual Bruce Wayne that's there. I took Bruce Wayne, given that I'm not a savant about the character, and I'd never written him before. I just wanted to give him all the things that basically Greg was giving me crib notes on of who he was and what made him sort of special and unique, and given that if you're just looking at them from a pure perspective of power, then Spawn wins the game. And the fun was, how do you come up with a way in which the story can service the human in it, which is Batman, and not make him seem like he's out of place, he's out of place fighting a guy who essentially has the power of Superman, right? So, and that just means you get to write a different character that thinks completely different in terms of certain situations than Al Simmons would, which is really the gist of the entire story, right? What makes these gentlemen similar and what makes them different, and how do they contrast? So,
Greg, after you did one of the big stunts on Spawn, then you went and did Batman for so long. Now that you're coming back to Spawn and Batman at the same time, are you approaching those characters differently as an artist, or are you trying to kind of emulate what you did before?
Well, I mean, for Spawn, it just getting right back into the mode. The only thing I had to do is, go back and go, which foot did I put the big boot on? Which one got this gauntlet or that, gauntlet, because, it's a long time ago. But, and Batman, I think the only minor thing was, there were certain things that I felt, once you're on a monthly book, you get yourself sort of locked in, and you got to do it that way because you want consistency. And so I just think I felt a little bit freer, when I was doing this, because it was no longer me and Scott Snyder. It was no longer the book. So if I wanted to make the cape a little bit longer, if I want to do whatever, I can't pin something down for you right now. I felt comfortable in doing that, so it was a way of also marrying two kind of different styles. No, they're not radically. Go, that was Capullo, Capullo, I see the same, but so I tried to bridge the gaps between the way I used to draw Spawn and sort of a detailed but more open style that I did on Batman, and sort of find a way to marry those two things and still have it appear seamless and belong together, instead of just start like adding Mignola against McFarlane, I didn't want it to be jarring at all.
What was it like working together again in the artistic realm? Because Todd, you're doing the inks for this book for issue 1 at least. How does that feel coming back together for something like that?
Cool, right? I mean, I always enjoyed not only inking Greg, but watching the evolution of Greg over those years of turning into the superstar that he is today, right? So, I mean, remember Greg came on pretty early in his career, and I had no idea that he would sort of turn like into the artist that he is today, which is an all-star, right? He's a Hall of Famer. So I got to play along with that transition. So now I would argue, to some extent, there's a bit of a guilt factor that his work is so spectacular to me. Again, I'm just talking for myself. So spectacular that when I look at the pencils, I almost don't want to put ink over it. I mean, the pencils are there. They're pretty awesome. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully DC will at some point show off all those 48 pages to the public, because they're quite astounding, I think. But given that I did have to put on the ink, it's pretty relaxing and enjoyable to just go, you're with a brother in arms that is doing things that he enjoys and you enjoy, and there's a bit of a mind meld of what we like. So I don't ever feel like I'm working on something that I'm cursing at, other than at times he puts in way too much work at times, and we have a deadline and we got to get it done, and we're not nearly as young as we used to be. Other than so there, I'll give you an example.
You have to remember, Todd's 1 year older than I am.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I wanted to add a bunch of stuff in the book without taking away from the through line, which is, this is a Batman and Spawn comic book, period, right? And it was too easy to get off those rails. So when I was talking to him about the Arkham Asylum, I wanted to bring what I call the weight of the Arkham Asylum, the mythology of Arkham Asylum. But I didn't want to have to service a bunch of pages to it because we only had 48. That was all that Greg had committed to. So we had the conversation, how we got there, how can I show Arkham Asylum and the prisoners, give the weight to it be meaningful, and I don't have to ink the shit out of a bunch of stuff that I know that if I gave Greg anything more. So it was a little bit of a bias on myself and survival instincts of going, is there any way you can make this shadowy and stuff? Because I knew if I said, hey, Prison Break and Arkham Asylum, I would been there. I'd probably still be inking the pages right now. So I go, it will service the book, keep us on track, and I won't get carpal
Die.
Yeah. So two quick ones before I let you go. Spawn recently, the line has expanded tenfold with team books, other books, things like that. Will those elements be appearing at all in the series?
Yes, I would, as flashes and hints that both the world of Batman and Gotham is much larger than you're seeing in this story, and so is the world of Spawn that he came through the hole. So Greg does an admirable job, even a lot of times when I wasn't asking, to just show floating heads and flashbacks, images. As a matter of fact, today I'm supposed to send out the list of what is in this book, and I want to say off the top of my head, there's probably 40 different things in there.
Wow.
I think people will enjoy without it bogging down the story. It's just hit, and not worrying about, like, okay, there's Gunslinger Spawn, but it's just an image and go. But it's acknowledging that his world exists. And oh, by the way, here's a shot that Greg does with, a collage of some of the characters that are in the DC multiverse. Cool, right? And now hit and go. Let's go. You've established that we each have a bunch of bad guys. Cool, let's go. But hopefully people will look at the list and or make their own list and go, man, it comes across as sort of a simple Batman Spawn story. It takes place over the course of about 6 hours. But man, there was actually more visual stuff in there than I thought at first read. I think if people stop after the first read, go back, they'll and make a checklist, they'll see that there's hopefully a lot more in there than they think.
Love it. I just hope to see my boy Haunt. So before I let you go,
oh yeah, no, he's in there.
Todd, you have not been that far from the DC world, being that you've been making some of the greatest figures we've ever seen of the characters.
Yeah, a bunch of them are based on Greg designs, correct?
Yeah, I was going to say, you don't have to tell me if this is a secret, but will we ever see a 2-box with these 2 caped heroes?
I know we've had this conversation, and again, sort of fingers crossed. I think it would be a fun toys, right? I mean, and if nothing else, Greg came up with a cool design for a new Talon that would be a hell of a toy too. So I think a 2-pack with those 2 characters in the same box would be. I'd want to buy it. So
good. That was a selfish question just for me. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for chatting with me. That was incredible. Thank you guys. Thank you, Nick, for setting this up.
Pleasure.
All right.